I think the American dream is real, but the British dream does not exist. In the UK, the system is designed for people not to succeed.
No, man, I want to rule the world, man. Like, my whole thing is I want to be the most influential person on this planet.
In reality, a lot of people are lazy. They will not make the effort.
Money, at the end of the day, drives the world.
Created by Make It Common. Each episode brings together two people with different perspectives. They're given a series of statements and must decide whether they agree or disagree. Once they choose their side, they go head to head, defending their views and challenging each other. Real opinions, real conversations, no scripts. This is The Other Side. Most entrepreneurs would take a stable salary if it paid enough.
Disagree. I disagree.
I also disagree.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs nowadays aren't incentivized by money. I think if you look at all the entrepreneurs out there, probably 1% of the population is fit for it. Actually, 1% of the very smart population is fit for it. And they're not incentivized, at least what I see, for money. They do it because they're wired differently. They know how to execute ideas, and they just move on. A lot of them start businesses from scratch in one vertical. They will scale it up, they will sell it, and then move on to the next thing. It's not even about money at that point. It's just because you like executing ideas, you like the idea of seeing your idea scale, and it's not even about monetary value at this point, at least. I think it's more about having a more fulfilling career than what you can get outside of the 9 to 5, because the personality type of an entrepreneur is very different to the personality type of someone who works a traditional 9 to 5. So I don't even think it's about money. And I think most of the entrepreneurs would take their salary and reinvest it into the business anyway. So especially if you want to scale it over time. So I don't really think there's a monetary value, at least that is the main incentive for entrepreneurs. I think it's more executing ideas and doing stuff that they enjoy and having more fulfilling career path. But what do you think?
So, I mean, I've got my own business, right? And I do exactly what you just said. So I still work a 9 to 5 sort of job, but I have a business on the side because I need to, put money into the business. So I'm kind of doing what you said. Now, however, there are two types of entrepreneur, in my opinion. So I think, first of all, I hate the word entrepreneur. I'll be completely real with you.
Okay.
But there are two versions. So one is, there's two ways to go about business. You can either try to think about the monetary side of it, and there are people that do that. If you want a business to start making you money quite quickly, you can sort of look at something that's been done before, put a twist on it, and go. Now, you can do what I've done, whereas you create a completely new concept. It will take you a lot longer to make that money, but your ceiling is a lot higher. So you have a ceiling, but then at the end of the day, money, I still think plays a part. I don't think it is the main part.
Yeah.
So I think, like for me, I am so money motivated. Like I worked in IB for a few years and stuff.
Yep.
A lot of it was to do with money, but also sort of what I actually wanted to do. I personally think that there is a big argument to say that money at the end of the day drives the world, right? And the world is essentially, because of money, it's become a company. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
I see money, it filters through like this, like this, like this. And I feel as though at the end of the day, you are always going to be having to serve someone wherever money is exchanged.
Yep.
So whether you work a 9 to 5, money, you're basically serving the person above you who owns the company, whatever it is, or your manager, whatever. Now, if you have a company, you're serving your customer. So I feel as though the money element is sort of circular a lot of the time. It just depends on where you want that money to be distributed.
Okay. Now, I know I'm straying away from the topic, but you used to work in investment banking.
Yeah.
Which is very monetary driven. I used to work in an investment bank as well.
Yeah.
Why did you go down the path of entrepreneurship in that case, if you used to be in investment banking? Just out of curiosity. Helps the context.
When I was younger, I was like, I'm one of these people that say, well, I'm going to do something, I'll do it. So when I was like 18, I said I wanted to get into investment banking. I finally did it. I stayed in there a few years, but I was like, what's next? And for me, money is a massive, massive motivator, but also its influence as well. And the thing is, look, investment banking gave me money to an extent, but if I want to make the billions and stuff, it's not going to get me to that level.
Higher ceiling.
Exactly.
Okay, fine.
And that's why I created a business, like I said, where it's a new concept, so the ceiling is a lot higher.
Okay, interesting. I know that's not the debate, but I actually disagree with the ceiling argument. I think in practice, yes, the ceiling is a lot higher in entrepreneurship, but the success rate also is
A lot lower.
a lot lower.
100%.
So I think if you were to do some like present value or expected return, the weighted average probably of a 9 to 5, I would say, is higher than entrepreneurship, because there was a study by the ONS, I think, that showed only 20% of businesses make at least $1 million in turnover over 3 years. And that's not profit, that's just turnover.
Yeah,
the
just
profit,
revenue,
that's
top line.
Yeah, you know that. You know, the profit is probably a lot less. And then the success rate from there, I imagine, is quite low. The insolvency rates must be like higher. So I don't know if I agree with the ceiling argument, but I definitely agree, if we're going back to the original question, I don't think entrepreneurs are motivated by money. I think they're motivated by something else. And you
Agree, I agree. I think but I just think the monetary value is an underlying motivation,
Yes,
if that
of
makes
course,
sense.
of course, of
But I think I agree with you, because like my main thing is influence. I want to sort of help
Okay.
people, as many people as I can.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can do that through businesses and through different ways.
Yeah, which is a great reason, by the
Yeah.
way. And I think if that's the path of entrepreneurship that people decide to take, 100%, I completely agree.
A top 9 to 5 job, like investment banking, gives you a better life than chasing business success.
Okay, I 100% agree. I 100% agree with this statement. That's my view. But what do you think?
It depends if you're talking short term or long term. Short term, 100%.
Okay, I agree with that statement as well. But even long term, I agree.
I personally don't. It depends on your business. Depends on the business idea.
Okay.
Like, for instance, I really believe in my business.
Okay.
I genuinely believe my business can hopefully make me money in about 3 to 5 years' time, more than I will hopefully ever have earned working in an investment bank.
Just for context, what's your business?
So it's essentially, say if you want to do something in London on the weekend or in the week, and you've got a partner or your family or your friends, whatever it is, you want to do something, but you know what, you haven't got time to plan anything, you're not got time to research what to do, where to go, whatever.
Okay.
We essentially do all that for you. Essentially, it's a concierge way.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, so our target market's quite big.
Okay, so not necessarily investment banking. So I work at a hedge fund, which is not a 9 to 5 job, but I'd say it's very similar to investment banking in the sense the hours that you're putting, and probably the monetary aspect it kind of differs in terms of bonuses, blah, blah, blah. But I would classify a hedge fund role within that. I think working in a role like that, you have not just your core base salary that you can, do whatever you want with it. You have the optionality to invest and diversify your income streams that I don't think you necessarily get with entrepreneurship. So my point is, with entrepreneurship, I think people who do it, they live, eat, breathe, sleep this business. Like, that's all they think about. When they're not working, it's all they think about. And even when they're sleeping, even when they're doing something else, it's all they think about. And they don't have time to actually do other things or invest in other things. All their money is going back into the business. Whereas if you work a top 9 to 5 job, let's say investment banking, consulting, law, I would classify those as the main ones. You work your core, your hours, whatever they may be, 12 hours a day, but you still have time to do other things. In my instance, I've been able to build my own TikTok account. I have 2 TikTok accounts with 40K followers. One of them generated me several thousands of pounds a month. And at the same time, I have my own stocks and shares. I have several brokerage accounts. And in theory, other people can do other things like invest in real estate. So I think a top 9 to 5 job versus entrepreneurship provides the optionality to do what you want with your time and diversify your income stream. So it's not just the core base salary. Over the lifespan of your career, let's say you invested, £1,000 a month, right? Of your salary into the stock market, like let's say S&P, right? And it compounds 7% annually. I mean, that's £1 million over the career, the lifespan of your career. So you have greater optionality, I think, that you don't necessarily get in entrepreneurship, but you're still building the skills in those 9 to 5 jobs, well, nuanced, top 9 to 5 jobs, that I think translate really well if you did want to do something else, like entrepreneurship. I mean, McKinsey, well-known, a lot of people transition out to do their own businesses, some of which, I follow are incredible. Talking about building data centers in space. That's the kind of business acumen that you get from these top 9-to-5 jobs. So I know it's a very long-winded answer, but I'll pause there. But that's kind of my argument.
I agree with a lot of what you said. And I think you do get the optionality, as you said. I just think that at the end of the day, what is a better life, right? Better life, you spoke about the monetary sort of side of it. Now, a lot of the time, people go to work and they don't specifically like what they do,
Yes.
or there are pressures, there are stresses and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, what you can do with entrepreneurship, you can essentially sort of build your boundaries around where your time goes, where your effort goes and whatnot. Entrepreneur, to me, and like I said, I hate the word, what I would class an entrepreneur as is someone who has multiple businesses, not just one business. Now, if you're doing that, you're not just putting all of your effort into one thing. You can segregate your time between multiple businesses. You have people that can manage that. And then you create a boundary for yourself, which can give you a better life in terms of sort of like financial freedom. You can do what you want. You could jump on a plane tomorrow and you don't have anyone to answer to because you are at the top. Whereas if you work a sort of, like you said, like a hedge fund or worked in IB, you constantly having someone to answer to above. Yeah. Your freedom kind of goes in our kind of jobs where, you know, like I feel like in certain jobs you can clock off, but there are certain jobs like ourselves where I might have to pick up a call at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I have to like when I was younger, more junior, you would have to do a deck by the morning. So then your evening's got, well, I say your evening, your literally night's gone.
In investment, this is an investment banking.
Yes,
fine,
of course.
Fine,
and
fine.
What I'm saying is like, you're always at the beckoning of the person above you. And I feel as though when you have an entrepreneur, when you have loads of businesses, for instance, you kind of can put those boundaries more in place than you can.
But having loads of businesses is tough. Like having one business in itself.
No, it is. I get it. But what I'm saying is when you eventually get there, agree in the short term, totally agree. Like I said at the start, I think in the short term, 100% agree with you. I think in the longer term, if you are able to scale it in a way where you can have multiple things, multiple streams, and build a life for you where you can segregate that away from you and your life becomes better, not just in a monetary way, but even a mental health way, spending time with your family, whatever you value to be better for your life, I think that's the way.
But that's a big if. If you're able to do all those things, I think it's really tough to do that in practice.
I know it is, but I think that's what separates people from being successful entrepreneurs and people who like the idea of being it and having a safety blanket. Like I feel as though to really, and I've just learned this very recently for my business. We started it 2 years ago, and it's not done as well as I expected. And the reason is because I was in IB, I was doing this, I was doing that, and the sort of time and effort I was putting into it was a lot less than I should have been.
Okay.
Now I have to go fully into it because what that does then builds that foundation. Then I can really scale it up quickly, and then I can start to look at my other things on the side.
Okay. I'm surprised you're able to do that, to do all these different things, because I think time, in the same way that you said in investment banking, you don't have the liberty of time because you're always reporting to someone else. I feel like it's kind of the same in entrepreneurship, or I know
you can build, the thing is, when you have a business, you can build it how you want to build it. The way we built our business, yes, at the start, it took a bit more time to put in, but it's a platform essentially.
Okay.
When it's a platform business, your overhead's a lot less. The way you have to do things is a lot less. If you can outsource your social media, marketing, blah, 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 there's a lot less actual doing you need to be. You need to be more of a overseer. So you need to be involved all the time. You need to be thinking what's actually going on, blah, blah, blah. However, there are a lot of other businesses which are a lot more time intensive, for instance. Depends how you build your business and the way then you can scale from there.
Okay, interesting. I think one point we didn't touch on in the statement is that it said a top 9-to-5
Yes.
job. Like, I strongly agree with the top 9-to-5 job aspect. I soft agree with just, if it was a general 9-to-5, I would soft agree.
Agree, yeah, I agree.
Because I used to work at a traditional 9-to-5, Fortune 500 company, clock in at 9, clock out at 5. And the financial freedom that you get from that is incredible. But then we're getting into different aspects about how fulfilling of a career that is. I completely agree with you that in a traditional 9-to-5, the progression in salary is slow. It's very, very slow compared to a top 9-to-5 job where the salary progression is a lot higher. The only difference, I think, in that is that you have a lot more optionality and time in a traditional 9-to-5 versus a top 9-to-5. So it's a balance of time versus money, I guess.
You have to really really be true to yourself and be like, okay, what do I need to prioritize? Because I've had so many people that say to me, I don't have the time to do this. You do have the time,
Yeah.
but you're choosing not to put that time into it.
100% agree.
And I feel as though, like, for instance, I've said loads of times, oh, I'm too busy, but I'm not too busy. It's just because I prioritize my business.
Yeah.
I prioritize seeing my partner. I prioritize this and this over like seeing my friends, for instance. So
Yeah.
I know I've sacrificed my friendships.
Yeah.
For instance, like I see them on the birthdays,
Yeah.
but I could see them a lot more often when they're like, oh, bro, do you want to go hang out in the week? I'm just like, no, sorry, I've got this to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And I do have time for it. I'm just prioritizing something else.
Yeah, agreed. Because everything we're talking about here is in theory.
Yes.
In reality, a lot of people are lazy. And if they have a traditional 9 to 5, they will not make the effort to actually pursue those other income streams that they want. I've seen it firsthand. And they'll do it for 2 weeks, it'll fizzle out.
And that's the thing. Like you said about your TikTok. Right now, it's about consistency.
Yeah.
And I've always said, hard work beats talent. And I think the social media age is literally a test to that so hard.
Yep.
Like, and I've had people say to me, like, I remember 10 years ago, I'll never forget this. I went on a date with a girl who was a doctor, right? And you know what she said to me? She goes, I hate influencers. I said, why? She goes, because they will earn more than I will potentially ever earn as a doctor. I said, you're being a doctor for the wrong reason, if that's what you're doing.
Yeah, true.
Second of all, I said, I think it's a good thing that it gives people a chance. 30 years ago, someone who wasn't smart or wasn't supremely talented in like an entertainment field, what were their options?
Yeah.
Like their options were literally what? Just working like just in retail. They had they had a ceiling.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if you want to put in the hard work, you can literally make whatever you want from your life. If everyone has the time to do it, as I always say to people, if you have no dependencies and you have access to a phone and access to the internet, you can literally do what the hell you want in life.
Agreed. So I think the conclusion for me is a top 9 to 5 job is, for me,
I said the same. Yes,
top
I
9
agree
to
with
5
that.
job,
Yes.
I think has a greater ability to make, in the long term, greater financial success, and you don't really need a side hustle. It'd be great if you did, but you have the optionality to do that. A traditional 9 to 5, I think they still can, but it depends if the person is willing enough to actually go beyond their own traditional 9 to 5 and actually pursue other income streams.
Yes, I agree. And like I said, for me, it's the top, but in the shorter term, it's the top. Longer term, I would go with entrepreneur. That's the only difference.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Cool. Fair enough.
People who stay in 9 to 5 jobs are choosing comfort over ambition for.
I agree. I would agree for the most part. Off the top of my head, it depends what career and what job you're in, because some 9 to 5 jobs do have ambition. I think it's a bit unfair to say that, oh, just because you're still in the same 9 to 5 job and you've been in it for, let's say, 10, 20, 30 years, you don't have ambition, because you can work your way up the corporate ladder very easily. I've seen it with my dad. In his instance, he stayed in one company for 30 years, worked his way to the top, and boom, boom. Like, I wouldn't say that's unambitious of him. So I would actually redo my statement. I'd actually disagree with that in a way, because in one way you get the comfort. I think it's very important that if you are in a 9 to 5 job, you have comfort because you have access to health insurance, you have access to whatever ISA, 401k, depending on where you live, and you have a very stable income. Yes. But I'd say it's very unfair to say, oh, just because you're in this job, you're unambitious. The fact that they probably even got a job in a, let's say, a Fortune 500 company, like 9 to 5 role, I think in itself is ambitious in a way. It depends what you do outside of that, though, that I think determines whether you're really ambitious or not. Because if you stay in a job in a 9 to 5, it's great, but what you do outside of your work, not necessarily even related to your career. It could be goals that you have, let's say fitness goals, right? You want to compete in competitions. You want to pursue other things that provide fulfillment and are actually very ambitious goals. So I don't know. I would actually slightly disagree with the statement now that I think about it a bit more. I don't know, but what do you think?
I think I agree for the most part, but I think you've literally said a lot of stuff I was going to say. So for instance, for me, I think what working in a 9 to 5 does, it does give you comfort because you have stability there. You know that unless you get fired or something. Even if you get fired, you still got a notice period that they're going to pay you out for, right? When you have your own business, you need to work for your money. You need to work for your P's. Like that is your bread and butter, right? I think what you've hit the nail on the head in terms of there are levels to ambition though. There are levels, and I don't totally agree with what you said in terms of you have to have something outside of work, because you can be ambitious and still work in a company. It's just levels of ambition.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
for instance, for me, I never thought, oh, I want to work in this company and get to the top. I was like, no, man, I want to rule the world, man. Like my whole thing is I want to be the most influential person on this planet, like, and be the richest person. That's my whole thing. That doesn't mean that a person who wants to get to a CFO or a CEO in like a FTSE 100 company has no ambition. It just we have different ambitions. Yeah. We have a different level of ambition. Mine is delusional. Yes, that's fine. But however, that person's is probably less delusional than mine, and that's also okay. But what it does, like, I agree with the sentiment that it does create comfort though, having that. And like, for instance, I've put myself in positions where I'm just like, let's just go for it. Like, honestly, like, I'm just gonna go for it because I need to do it right now because I'm getting older. I'm like, oh my days, like, I'm running out of time. And I feel as though like it definitely gives you that sort of comfort blanket, but in order to successfully be someone in a business sense, you have to take that comfort blanket off.
Okay, I completely agree. I would probably say in a more general sense, the level of ambition for someone who's doing their own business is probably greater than someone who's doing a 9-to-5. I completely agree with that because you have a certain dream, you have a certain culture, you have a certain lifestyle or something that you want to bring to the world, that you want to create. That in itself, I would probably say is a bit more ambitious than a traditional 9-to-5.
Okay, I get that to an extent because when you are trying to, what you've just said there, trying to bring something else to the world, I get that's more ambitious because that means that the world is now missing something that you think you can add to it.
Exactly, you see the world different.
And I agree because I think I'm a weirdo. It's fine compared to most investment bankers. It is what it is. However, I completely agree with that statement. I think that's completely correct.
But the point that you made about levels of ambition, we didn't touch on it, but I didn't think about it at first, but I completely agree because I've seen people who work a normal 9-to-5 and that's it. They kind of just clock out, go back home, watch Netflix, and that's it. You know, there's not much to it.
But that's fine.
It's fine.
And you can still be ambitious doing that. But that is your level of ambition. Like, you can still be ambitious in, like, you can still have ambition to kind of like progress slowly in your career. That's still ambition, right? So.
Okay, I would clock that as probably the lowest form of ambition.
fair.
But there are levels to it. I think that's a very good point.
There's levels to everything, man. I always say that. There's levels to absolutely anything. That's why I hate people when they're like, oh my God, I'm the best at this. I'm like, bro, there's probably someone out there who's still better than you.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So yeah, I would conclude by saying soft disagree, actually. I would say working 9-to-5, you probably get, I wouldn't deem that unambitious if you just stayed in 9-to-5 for the rest of your career and not move jobs. But I think your level of ambition is determined by what you do.
And I would say softly agree, probably, but I think we're sort of in the middle.
Fine. Exactly. Okay, cool.
Most people who say they want to start a business are not capable of running one.
Do you want me to go first?
Go first.
100% agree.
Okay.
Because just starting my own business, one thing you do is I'm an ideas person, right? And I'm so happy that I have a co-founder who is more on the sort of, let's say, pessimistic side than me. I am pessimistic with a lot of my own things, but when it comes to sort of ideas and stuff, I'm quite optimistic about where it can go to. And in my head, I had the idea of doing this. I was like, oh my God, we should do this because, you know, people always ask me what to do and where to go and things. I should just monetize this, and like knowledge can be monetized, right? So in my head, I was like, oh my God, this is how we're going to do it. And I was like, we just need to get a developer in, set up the website, should be fine. I spoke to one of my friends. He was like, you know what? You need a full stack developer. I was like, oh, what's that? then the costs start rising. And then you start talking to these people and it's like, oh, like, no, we need this. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then didn't even think about getting a lawyers in to do all the drafting of the terms and conditions. And then, I mean, I have an accountant, but you know what I mean? I've got to think about the accountant. I've got to think about marketing. I've got to think about this. And I'm like, wow, this has gone from like one thing that I thought, oh, we just need to do this bit to now 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 10 different things I've now got to think about. But yeah, I completely agree with the statement.
I also completely agree with the statement, and I agree with the points that you made, because my personal view is I think social media nowadays has kind of glamorized the idea of quitting the 9-to-5 and starting your own business. And in reality, I think it's a lot tougher than what people realize, because the idea of starting a business is great. But like you mentioned, there's so much bureaucracy and logistics associated with it. A lot of paperwork, a lot of accounting, a lot of law. You got to register your business. You have to know the laws about whether you're allowed to do certain things for the business. And I think that's a big hurdle. I think probably nowadays with AI, it's probably a bit easier to figure out those things, but it's still very difficult. And there are a lot of hurdles to starting a business that I think I've seen firsthand. People say, I want to start this kind of business. It's let's say, a clothing brand, for example. They'll work on it for a couple weeks. And by the time you have to place your orders or do anything that's business related that isn't, let's say, the artistic side, because there's many, as you probably know, there are many things involved with the business, not just creating the idea. It's the marketing, it's the finance, it's the business, it's communication, emails, blah, 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 all of this. But not a lot of people know how to do all of those things. They probably only know how to do one and they're super passionate about it. And if you look at the most successful people who have started businesses, they are probably less than one, they're probably top 0.0111% of the smartest people in the world, I would say. And they don't know a lot about what they do or about the industry. Elon Musk, for example, like very basic example, but he does things in automotive. He does things with SpaceX. He runs X. He does all these things. I bet you he probably didn't know a lot about those industries when they started, but he had to learn. But that's what differentiates people. They know how to execute things. People who succeed in the field of entrepreneurship, they succeed not because they have great ideas, but because they know how to execute those ideas.
It's about, yes, I agree. And I think that comes down to like project management, for instance. I think people who can be good project managers, and I think one of my strong suits I've been working in financial services for over 10 years now, has been project management. If I look back and try and like take a perspective, I'm like, what has been the strength in all of my different jobs I've had? And it is project management. I can get things done. Like I can start something and get things done. And I think that feeds into the entrepreneurship bit 100%. Yeah. I think the thing is what you said is, it's true. But like in terms of, you need a person to do basically every single thing. And I think the thing that people sort of get bogged down in is when they try and do everything themselves. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to delegate, and that can be hard when it's your baby, right? Like when I remember for the first 6 months, I was like, I'm going to do all the socials. I'm going to do all this. And I quickly realized, first of all, I'm crap on socials, right? There are people who are Gen Z, I'm not Gen Z, who are so much better than me at navigating TikTok, navigating Instagram and things like that, editing things a lot quicker than I can edit. I'm like, why would I waste my time doing this and do that? And for instance, I do music on the side, right? So I'm a musician. And I remember when I first moved to London, so I basically, before I moved to London, I was just remixing, I'm a rapper, right? I was remixing like popular songs at a time, had a few label meetings in London and whatnot. So when I came to London, I was like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to a studio. When I went to a studio, the first thing I did, I was like, I am never ever gonna do my own recording again, because although I have to pay this person, he is 100 times more efficient than me and can get things done. Time is money, and you have to be able to put that into different ways.
Agreed. The issue with that is not a lot of people have the money to do that. And that's why I don't think a lot of people can even, the barriers to entry for...
Barriers to entry, so that is an amazing point. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Because that's just triggered a thought of me so people come to me with business ideas all the time. And I always tell them if it's decent or not decent. And I'm quite blunt about it. And I always say to people, if they're just like, I want to start a business, but I don't know what to do. Yeah. If you have a brand already, you can potentially do a product brand because the risks are a lot lower because you already have a reach there. that you can start selling to.
Agree.
However, realistically, you're not going to have that. Create a service. Although your initial capital will be a lot higher, if you're actually looking at this on the long term, your overheads are going to be a lot less, your operating margins are going to be a lot higher because there's a lot less risk there.
Yeah.
And I think people don't think about that. They think what you said, you know, about the clothing brand. People think, oh, I want to create this, like, you know, I've got this garment stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
Bro, like, it takes money. You got to put in money to put that in. The profit's a lot lower.
Exactly. So when you think about a traditional 9-to-5 worker who probably makes, I don't know, the average salary in the UK, they probably end up taking 2.5, 3K a month back home. I don't know if that's enough to actually start a business in the UK where you're able to save that money if you're not, you know, investing it elsewhere. I don't think 2.5 to 3K is a lot. For example, if you are starting a product brand like clothing, jewelry, whatever it may be, even the working capital to order your first batch of inventory is insane. And a lot of people are not willing to take that risk. So I think it comes down to the personality type of who you are as well at the same time. Some people are willing to take that risk if they back themselves. It's a bit crazy, but I think entrepreneurs are crazy people to begin with because they see the world much more differently than someone who isn't in entrepreneurship.
I think if you have, like I said, if you have a reach, even if you don't have a brand socially, but say, I don't know, say if like you are best mates with a footballer who plays for Man City, I don't know, or Man United, whatever it is, you're literally his best mate. You know that if you create something like a product, like a t-shirt or something, he will wear it. He will pass it on to his friends. That will get the word out quickly. Yeah. If you have the reach, try it.
Yeah, but people don't have the...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't have it, I think personally, it's like I'm a massive risk taker, but I like to think I take calculated risks. Like I said, this business I set up, it's a service business. Why? Because the initial capital, yeah, it was a lot more than I expected because I didn't realize how much developers cost. However, that is now done. Now, like the sort of ongoing, like, you know, ongoing costs of the actual business are a lot lower because I'm not having to create something from scratch every time. I don't have to get orders in. I'm not having to deliver. I'm not having to do this. Everything is automated to an extent, and it's all done online. Yeah. It's a services business. So
yeah, I completely agree. I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, this is it's less controversial than I thought it was gonna be.